Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked down the busy corridor of New Terra Station. His blue work uniform was dirty from crawling through air ducts all day, fixing broken fans and checking filters. The smell of oil and metal still clung to his hands even after washing them twice. It had been another long day in the maintenance department. Jake worked on level 7, deep in the belly of the massive space station. Most people never saw the places he worked. They just enjoyed the clean air and perfect temperature without thinking about who made it possible. The corridor buzzed with activity. Humans hurried past him, talking on their communication devices. Tall, blue-skinned Altarians glided by in their flowing robes. Short, furry Proxians chattered in groups, their big eyes scanning everything around them. Jake had lived on New Terra Station for 3 years now, and he still found it amazing to see so many different species in one place. He reached the transport platform just as the intersector train arrived. The doors slid open with a soft hiss and passengers poured out. Jake waited his turn, then stepped inside. The train car was already crowded with workers heading home after their shifts. Jake found a spot near the back and settled into one of the plastic seats. The train lurched forward, beginning its journey through the different sections of the station. He closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the tiredness in his bones. Tomorrow would be another day of fixing things that broke, cleaning filters that got dirty, and making sure thousands of beings could breathe clean air. At the next stop, more passengers got on. Jake opened his eyes and watched as beings of different shapes and sizes squeezed into the already packed car. A group of Centaurian traders pushed past a family of humans. 2 Zephyrian workers stood near the door, their silver skin catching the overhead lights. The train stopped again. This time, fewer passengers got off, but many more tried to get on. Jake could see beings standing in the aisles, holding onto support rails as the train moved. The air grew thick with the smell of different species mixed together. At Sector 5, the doors opened again. An elderly Zephyrian stepped slowly onto the train. Jake had seen many Zephyrians before, but this one was clearly very old. His silver skin had a dull shine, and his forearms moved carefully as if they hurt. The elder Zephyrian looked around the crowded car, searching for somewhere to sit. All the seats were taken. Younger beings stood in the aisles, but no one moved to offer the old Zephyrian a place to rest. Some passengers looked at him, then quickly looked away. Others pretended not to see him at all. Jake watched as the elderly alien slowly made his way down the aisle. The Zephyrian's breathing seemed labored, and he gripped the support rail tightly with 2 of his arms. When the train took a sharp turn, the elder stumbled slightly, catching himself before he fell. Without thinking, Jake stood up. He gently touched the Zephyrian's shoulder to get his attention. "Here, sir," Jake said, gesturing to his seat. "Please take my seat." The elderly Zephyrian looked surprised. His large dark eyes studied Jake's face carefully. For a moment, neither of them moved. Other passengers stopped their conversations and turned to watch. "You offer your seat to me?" the Zephyrian asked in careful English. His voice was deep and smooth, but Jake could hear the weariness in it. "Of course," Jake replied with a smile. "You look tired, and I'm young enough to stand." The Zephyrian's expression changed. Something that might have been wonder crossed his features. "This is unexpected," he said slowly. "Most beings do not show such courtesy to other species." Jake shrugged. "Where I come from, you give your seat to elders. Doesn't matter what species they are. It's just the right thing to do." The elderly Zephyrian carefully lowered himself into the seat. His forearms folded neatly in his lap, and he let out a small sigh of relief. "I am called Threnka," he said, looking up at Jake. "Jake Morrison," Jake replied, holding on to the support rail as the train continued its journey. "Jake Morrison?" Threnka repeated as if testing how the name sounded. "You work in maintenance?" Jake looked down at his dirty uniform and laughed. "How did you guess?" "Yeah, I fix the air systems. Make sure everyone can breathe clean air." "Important work," Threnka said seriously. "Without clean air, we all suffer." "Someone has to do it," Jake said. "I don't mind. It's honest work." The train slowed as it approached Sector 8. Jake saw through the windows that this was his stop. He started to move toward the door, then paused. "This is my stop," he told Threnka. "It was nice meeting you, sir." The elderly Zephyrian reached out with one of his arms and gently touched Jake's hand. "Thank you, Jake Morrison. Your kindness will not be forgotten." Jake nodded and made his way through the crowd to the door. As he stepped off the train, he turned back and waved at Threnka through the window. The elderly Zephyrian raised one of his arms in return. Walking home through the residential sector, Jake didn't think much about what had happened. He had simply done what felt right. His mother had always taught him to respect his elders and help others when he could. It didn't matter that Threnka was an alien. Age was age, and everyone deserved respect. Jake's small apartment was on level 12, in a section where junior station workers lived. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean and comfortable. He made himself a simple dinner and sat by his small window, looking out at the stars beyond the station. He thought about Threnka and wondered what the elderly Zephyrian's story was. How long had he lived? What had he seen in his lifetime? Jake realized he knew very little about Zephyrian culture, but he figured kindness was probably appreciated by most species. As he got ready for bed, Jake set his alarm for the next morning. Tomorrow would bring more broken air filters, more clogged ducts, and more maintenance work. It was a simple life, but it was his life, and he was content with it. He had no idea that his small act of kindness had been noticed by someone very important. He had no idea that giving up his seat would change everything. Jake's alarm buzzed at 6 a.m, just like every other day. He rolled out of bed, showered, and put on his clean blue maintenance uniform. His coffee maker gurgled as it brewed his morning cup, filling his small apartment with the rich smell he loved. He grabbed his tool bag and headed out the door, expecting another normal day of fixing air systems and cleaning filters. The corridors of New Terra Station were quieter in the early morning, with only the night shift workers heading home and early birds like himself starting their day. When Jake reached the maintenance department on level 7, he noticed something strange. His supervisor, Lisa Chen, was pacing back and forth in front of the assignment board. Her face was pale, and she kept checking her communication device every few seconds. "Morning, Lisa," Jake called out as he approached. "What's got you all worked up?" Lisa spun around when she heard his voice. Her eyes were wide with worry. "Jake, thank goodness you're here. We have a situation." "What kind of situation?" Jake asked, setting down his tool bag. "Did the main air processor break down again?" "No, it's not that," Lisa said, wringing her hands. "Jake, I need you to sit down." Jake felt a flutter of worry in his stomach. In 3 years of working maintenance, he had never seen Lisa this nervous. "What's wrong?" "Did I mess something up yesterday?" "The Zephyrian High Command has requested to see you," Lisa said quickly. "They want you to report to the diplomatic quarters immediately." Jake stared at her. "The what now?" "The Zephyrian High Command," Lisa repeated. "They're military leaders." "Jake, what did you do yesterday?" "I worked on air filters," Jake said slowly. "Same as always." "I don't understand." "Think harder," Lisa urged. "Did you go anywhere? Talk to anyone? Break any alien protocols?" Jake thought back to the previous day. It had been completely ordinary except for, "I gave my seat to an elderly Zephyrian on the transport." "That's the only thing I can think of." Lisa's face went even paler. "Oh no, Jake, you might have violated some kind of cultural rule. Some alien species have very strict social hierarchies." Before Jake could respond, 2 station security officers appeared at the entrance to the maintenance area. They were both human, wearing crisp black uniforms with silver badges. "Jake Morrison?" one of them asked. "That's me," Jake said, his mouth suddenly dry. "Please come with us, sir. The Zephyrian delegation is waiting." Jake looked at Lisa, who gave him an encouraging but worried smile. "Just be polite and honest," she whispered. "Maybe it's not as bad as we think." The security officers led Jake through parts of New Terra Station he had never seen before. They took express elevators that required special key cards, walked through corridors with marble floors instead of metal grating, and passed through multiple security checkpoints. "Where exactly are we going?" Jake asked as they rode another elevator upward. "Diplomatic quarters," one officer replied. "Level 50. It's where alien ambassadors and high-ranking officials stay when they visit the station." Jake had never been higher than level 20. He didn't even know the station had 50 levels. When the elevator doors opened, he stepped into a world completely different from his own. The corridors here were wide and elegant, with soft lighting and actual plants growing in decorative pots. The walls were covered with artwork from different alien cultures. The air smelled clean and fresh without the metallic tang he was used to in the lower levels. They stopped in front of a door marked with symbols Jake didn't recognize. One of the security officers pressed a button next to the door. "Jake Morrison is here to see the Grand Admiral," he announced. The door slid open silently. Inside was a large room with furniture designed for Zephyrian anatomy. The ceiling was higher than normal, and everything had a silver and blue color scheme. Standing near a large window that showed the stars outside was the elderly Zephyrian from the transport. But he looked completely different now. Instead of simple clothes, he wore an elaborate uniform covered with medals and symbols of rank. His silver skin seemed to shine brighter, and his posture was straight and commanding. This was not just any elderly Zephyrian. Jake Morrison, the alien said, turning to face him. "Please enter." Jake stepped into the room and the door closed behind him. The security officers remained outside. "Sir," Jake said uncertainly, "I think there might be some confusion. I'm just a maintenance worker." "There is no confusion," the Zephyrian replied. "I am Grand Admiral Threnka of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet, and you gave me your seat yesterday." Jake's leg suddenly felt weak. "You're a Grand Admiral." "I am the Grand Admiral," Threnka corrected gently. "The highest military rank in our civilization. I command over 2 million ships and soldiers." "Oh no," Jake said, sinking into a chair designed for humans. "I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't know. Did I insult you somehow? I was just trying to be polite." Grand Admiral Threnka moved closer, his forearms folded behind his back. "Insult me? Jake Morrison, you have done the opposite." "I don't understand," Jake said. "In Zephyrian culture, showing respect to elders is the highest form of honor," the Grand Admiral explained, "but it must be done freely without expectation of reward. Most beings who know my rank show me respect because they fear me or want something from me." Jake nodded slowly. "But I didn't know who you were." "Exactly," Threnka said, his dark eyes gleaming. "You showed me kindness simply because you believed it was right. You asked for nothing in return. You expected nothing in return." "It's how I was raised," Jake said. "My mother always taught me to respect my elders and help others when I could." "Your mother raised you well," the Grand Admiral said. "Jake Morrison, what I am about to tell you must remain secret until I give you permission to speak of it." Jake felt his heart beating faster. "Okay." For the past 6 months, Zephyrian observers have been living on this station, studying the behavior of different species. We have been looking for individuals with specific moral qualities. "What kind of qualities?" Jake asked. "Compassion without expectation, kindness to strangers, respect for others regardless of their status or species," Threnka listed. "These qualities are rare in the galaxy, Jake Morrison. Many species value strength, intelligence, or cunning. Few value pure goodness." Jake shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "I'm not special, sir. I just try to do the right thing." "That is exactly what makes you special," the Grand Admiral said. "Jake Morrison, how would you like to help save the galaxy?" Jake stared at Grand Admiral Threnka, certain he had misheard. "Save the galaxy? Sir, I think you have the wrong person. I fix air filters." The Grand Admiral moved to the large window and gazed out at the stars. 3 weeks ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected a signal from the edge of known space. It was unlike anything we had ever seen before. "What kind of signal?" Jake asked, still trying to process everything that was happening. "A message," Threnka replied, "but not from any species we know. The signal came from coordinates that should be empty space according to all our star charts." Jake leaned forward in his chair. "Maybe it's a new species trying to make contact." "That was our first thought," the Grand Admiral said. "But when we sent ships to investigate, they found something impossible." Threnka touched a control panel on the wall, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed a 3-dimensional map of space with stars and planets marked as tiny lights. "Here is New Terra Station," Threnka said, pointing to a blue dot. "And here, at these coordinates, our ships found this." The display zoomed in to show a massive structure floating in empty space. It was clearly artificial, with geometric shapes and glowing sections that pulsed with soft light. "It's a space station," Jake breathed. "But it's huge." "How big is it?" "Roughly the size of Earth's moon," Threnka replied. "But here is the mystery. According to our best estimates, this structure is at least 50,000 years old." Jake whistled softly. "That's older than most civilizations." "Older than all known civilizations," the Grand Admiral corrected. "Whoever built this station existed long before any of our species developed space travel." The holographic display changed to show several ships approaching the ancient station. Jake watched as the ships got closer to the structure. "What happened when your ships tried to dock?" Jake asked. That is where the problem begins, Threnka said grimly. The first ship that attempted to make contact simply vanished. No distress signal, no explosion, nothing. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. Vanished how? We do not know. The second ship was more careful. They detected powerful energy fields around the station and tried to communicate using standard first contact protocols. The display showed bright flashes of light between the ship and the station. The station responded, Threnka continued, but not to our communications. Instead, it began scanning our ship with some kind of advanced technology. When the scan was complete, the station sent a single message. What did it say? Threnka touched the control panel again and symbols appeared in the air. They shifted and changed until they formed words in English. Not ready. Not worthy. Come back when you understand kindness. Jake read the message twice. Kindness? The alien station was looking for kindness? It seems so, the Grand Admiral said. We sent 5 more ships from different species. Altarians, Proxians, Centaurians, even a joint crew. Every time the station scanned the ships and sent the same message. And then yesterday happened, Threnka said, turning to face Jake directly. I was on this station conducting my own observations, disguised as a common worker. I wanted to see firsthand how different species interacted with each other. Jake felt his cheeks grow warm. The transport, Threnka confirmed. In my 70 years of life spanning a military career across the galaxy, no being has ever shown me kindness without knowing who I was. Most species operate on hierarchies, Jake Morrison. They show respect to those above them and demand it from those below them. But that's not real respect, Jake said. That's just fear. Exactly, the Grand Admiral said, his eyes gleaming. Real kindness, real respect comes from the heart. It is given freely without expectation of reward. Jake was beginning to understand. You think that's what the station is looking for? I am certain of it, Threnka replied. The station was built by a species that valued compassion above all else. They left this station as a test, waiting for a species that could demonstrate true kindness. But why me? Jake asked. I'm sure there are other humans who would have given you their seat. Perhaps, Threnka acknowledged. But you are the one who did it. And more importantly, you are the one I observed. The Grand Admiral walked over to a desk and picked up a datapad. Jake Morrison, age 28, born on Earth in the city of Denver. Parents, Robert Morrison, teacher, and Helen Morrison, nurse. Moved to New Terra Station 3 years ago to work in maintenance, Jake nodded. That's right. Your supervisor describes you as reliable, honest, and helpful. Your coworkers say you always volunteer for the difficult jobs. Your neighbors report that you help elderly residents with their groceries and fix their broken appliances for free. That's just being a good neighbor, Jake protested. The station security footage shows you giving your seat to elderly beings on 17 different occasions over the past 3 years. Threnka continued. Humans, Altarians, Proxians, and now Zephyrians. You have never discriminated based on species. Jake felt uncomfortable with all the attention. I don't understand why this matters. It matters because we need someone the ancient station will accept, Threnka explained. We need someone who embodies the qualities it is looking for. You want me to go to this station? I want you to lead a joint expedition to make first contact with whatever intelligence controls that station, the Grand Admiral said. Representatives from 6 different species have agreed to work together on this mission, but only if we can find the right person to represent our combined civilizations. Jake stood up and began pacing around the room. Sir, I appreciate your confidence, but I'm not qualified for this. I've never been in space combat. I don't know alien protocols, and I certainly don't know how to handle first contact situations. Combat skills can be taught, Threnka said calmly. Protocols can be learned. But character cannot be manufactured, Jake Morrison. Either you have kindness in your heart or you do not. What if I mess up? What if I say the wrong thing and start an interstellar war? Then we will face that together, the Grand Admiral replied. But I believe the greater risk is not trying at all. Jake stopped pacing and looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there was an ancient station built by a mysterious species. It held secrets that could benefit everyone, but it would only open its doors to someone who understood kindness. If I agree to this, Jake said slowly, what exactly would I be doing? You would join a crew of specialists aboard my flagship, Threnka explained. We will travel to the ancient station and attempt to make peaceful contact. Your role would be to represent humanity and serve as our moral compass. When would we leave? Tomorrow, Jake turned around. Tomorrow? That's not much time to prepare. The signal from the station has been growing stronger, Threnka said. Our scientists believe it may be some kind of countdown. We cannot wait. Jake thought about his simple life on New Terra Station, his small apartment, his maintenance job, his quiet routine. It wasn't exciting, but it was safe and predictable. Then he thought about the ancient station and the message it had sent. Not ready. Not worthy. Come back when you understand kindness. Maybe that's what the galaxy needed. Not more weapons or technology, but more kindness. Okay, Jake said finally. I'll do it. Jake had never seen a ship like the ZHS Starwind. The Zephyrian flagship was massive, stretching nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern. Its silver hull gleamed under the lights of New Terra Station's docking bay, and elegant curves gave it an almost artistic appearance. Beautiful, isn't she? Said a voice behind him. Jake turned to see a tall man in a blue uniform approaching. He had short brown hair and the confident walk of someone used to command. I'm Captain Ryan Torres, the man said, extending his hand. I'll be commanding the human contingent of this mission. Jake Morrison, Jake replied, shaking the captain's hand. Though I'm still not sure why I'm here, Captain Torres smiled. Grand Admiral Threnka briefed me on your selection. Trust me, you're exactly who we need for this mission. They walked together toward the ship's boarding ramp. Jake carried a small bag with his few belongings, feeling underdressed in his civilian clothes while everyone else wore military uniforms. How many ships are going on this mission? Jake asked. 6, Torres replied. 1 from each species in the Alliance. The Starwind will serve as the flagship, but we'll have representatives from the Altarians, Proxians, Centaurians, Vegan Collective, and, of course, humans. As they boarded the ship, Jake was amazed by the interior. The corridors were wide and well lit with smooth walls that seemed to glow with their own light. Everything was designed with both beauty and function in mind. The Zephyrians really know how to build ships, Jake commented. Wait until you see the bridge, Torres said with a grin. They took a lift to the upper levels of the ship. When the doors opened, Jake stepped into the most impressive space he had ever seen. The bridge was circular with stations arranged around a central command area. But what took his breath away were the windows. The entire front wall was transparent, offering a perfect view of space. Jake Morrison, Grand Admiral Threnka, called from the center of the bridge. Come, meet your team. Jake walked over to where several beings were gathered around a holographic display. Threnka began making introductions. This is Dr. Amy Liu, our xenobiologist, the Grand Admiral said, gesturing to a young Asian woman with intelligent eyes. She specializes in first contact protocols. Pleased to meet you, Jake, Dr. Liu said warmly. I've read your file. Your approach to interspecies relations is exactly what we need. I don't have an approach, Jake said. I just treat everyone with respect. That is an approach, said a new voice. Jake turned to see a tall, blue-skinned Altarian gliding toward them. I am Scholar Vexna. I study ancient civilizations. Scholar Vexna has been researching the possible origins of the station we're investigating, Threnka explained. A short, furry Proxian bounded up to them, his large eyes bright with excitement. And I am Engineer Pip-Talk. I maintain the ships and fix things that break, just like you. Jake smiled. Nice to meet you, Pip-Talk. The rest of the team is aboard their respective ships, Threnka said. We will work together through communications links during the journey. Captain Torres stepped forward. If everyone is ready, we should begin departure procedures. The journey to the station will take 4 days. As the ships prepared to leave New Terra Station, Jake found himself assigned quarters near the human section of the ship. His room was larger than his apartment back on the station, with a real window that showed the stars outside. Dr. Liu stopped by his room later that evening. Mind if I come in? I thought you might have some questions about the mission. Actually, I do, Jake said, gesturing for her to sit down. What exactly do we know about this ancient species that built the station? Very little, Amy admitted. Scholar Vexna has found references to them in a few ancient texts, but most civilizations called them simply the Builders. The Builders? They seem to have existed long before any current species developed space travel, Amy explained. Legend says they created much of the infrastructure that allows our modern galactic civilization to exist. Like what? Jump gates, universal translation protocols, even some of the basic principles of faster-than-light travel, Amy said. If the legends are true, the builders gave these gifts to younger species and then vanished. Jake thought about this. Why would they vanish? No one knows. Some texts suggest they transcended physical existence. Others say they died out naturally. A few hint that they were waiting for something. Waiting for what? Amy leaned forward. For a species that could prove they were worthy successors. The next few days passed quickly. Jake spent his time learning about the different alien cultures represented on the mission. Each species had its own values and customs, but he noticed something troubling. Most of them operated on hierarchical systems where power and strength were valued above all else. The Altarians respected wisdom and age. The Proxians valued cleverness and technical skill. The Centaurians honored wealth and trading ability. But what about kindness? Jake asked Dr. Liu during one of their conversations. What about helping others just because it's right? Those concepts exist, Amy said carefully, but they're usually secondary to other values. Most alien species see pure altruism as illogical. That seems sad, Jake said. It's just different, Amy replied. Human values aren't necessarily better, just different. But Jake wasn't so sure about that. The more he learned about galactic civilization, the more he realized how unusual his simple act of giving up his seat had been. On the fourth day, Captain Torres announced over the ship's communication system that they were approaching their destination. Jake hurried to the bridge to see the ancient station for the first time. Nothing could have prepared him for what he saw. The station was enormous, easily the size of a small moon. Its surface was covered with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as he watched. Soft blue light pulsed along channels carved into its hull, creating patterns that looked almost like a heartbeat. Incredible, Dr. Liu whispered beside him. Scans show the station is completely powered, reported a Zephyrian officer. Energy readings are off the charts. And it's definitely artificial, added Engineer Piptalk from his ship. Those patterns aren't natural. Grand Admiral Threnka stepped forward. All ships maintain safe distance. Jake Morrison, please join me at the communications station. Jake walked over to where Threnka stood before a complex control panel. What do you need me to do? The station has been scanning us since we arrived, Threnka explained, just as it scanned all the previous ships. But this time I want you to be the one who responds when it makes contact. What should I say? Whatever feels right, the Grand Admiral replied. Trust your instincts. Suddenly, the lights on the bridge dimmed. A low humming sound filled the air and Jake felt a strange tingling sensation, as if something was examining him from the inside out. Then a voice spoke directly into his mind, bypassing his ears entirely. Who seeks entry to the archive of the builders? Jake took a deep breath. Everyone on the bridge was looking at him, waiting for his response. My name is Jake Morrison, he said aloud, hoping the station could hear him. I represent the species of this galaxy. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship. Jake Morrison, the voice repeated. You are different from the others who have come before. Why do you seek our knowledge? Jake thought about the question carefully. Because I think the galaxy could be a better place if we all learned to be kinder to each other. There was a long pause. Then the voice spoke again. Approach, Jake Morrison. You may dock at Port 7, but know this, you will be tested. The docking bay inside the ancient station was unlike anything Jake had ever imagined. The walls seemed to be made of living crystal that pulsed with gentle blue light. The air felt different too, charged with energy that made his skin tingle. Stay close together, Captain Torres instructed as the team stepped off their shuttle. We don't know what to expect. The group consisted of Jake, Grand Admiral Threnka, Dr. Amy Liu, Scholar Vexna, Engineer Piptalk, and representatives from the other allied species. Everyone wore environmental suits, though the station's atmosphere appeared to be breathable. As they walked deeper into the station, Jake noticed that their footsteps made no sound. The floor seemed to absorb all noise, creating an eerie silence that was broken only by their breathing and the distant hum of unknown machinery. The architecture is incredible, Dr. Liu whispered, running her scanner over the walls. These materials don't match anything in our databases. The power readings are off the scale, Piptalk added, his furry face pressed against his own scanner. Whatever runs this place has been operating for thousands of years without maintenance. They came to a large circular chamber with a raised platform in the center. As soon as Jake stepped into the room, the walls around them came alive with light. Symbols and images flowed across the crystal surfaces like water. "Welcome, Jake Morrison." The voice from earlier spoke directly into their minds. "I am the archive, the last legacy of the builders." A figure began to materialize on the central platform. It was humanoid in shape but seemed to be made of the same living light that filled the walls. Its features were gentle and wise, with large eyes that held the weight of centuries. "You are not the builders?" Scholar Vexna asked, his blue skin paling with excitement. "The builders transcended physical form long ago," the archive replied. "I am their memory, their knowledge, and their test." "Test?" Grand Admiral Threnka stepped forward. "What kind of test?" The archive turned its attention to Jake. "For 50,000 years I have waited for a species that could demonstrate true compassion. Many have come seeking our knowledge. All have failed." Images began flowing across the walls, showing different alien species approaching the station throughout history. Jake saw beings he didn't recognize, some beautiful, others terrifying, all of them apparently seeking the builders' secrets. "What did they do wrong?" Jake asked. "They came seeking power," the archive explained. "They wanted our technology to make themselves stronger, to defeat their enemies, to dominate others. None understood the most important lesson, which is that true strength comes from kindness," the archive said simply. "The builders learned this truth after centuries of war and suffering. They became the most powerful civilization in the galaxy not through conquest but through compassion." Dr. Liu stepped forward. "What happened to them?" "They evolved beyond the need for physical form," the archive replied. "But before they left, they created me to test future species. They wanted to ensure their knowledge would only be shared with those who would use it wisely." "And you think we're ready?" Captain Torres asked. The archive's glowing form turned back to Jake. "That depends on Jake Morrison." Jake felt the weight of everyone's attention. "I don't understand. What makes me special?" "Show me," the archive said. Suddenly, the chamber around them changed. Jake found himself standing alone in what appeared to be the transport from New Terra Station. The familiar plastic seats and support rails surrounded him, and he could smell the mixture of different species that always filled the crowded cars. An elderly Zephyrian entered the transport, moving slowly and clearly in pain. But this time Jake could see more clearly. He could see the respect in the alien's eyes, the dignity despite his obvious discomfort, and something else, a deep sadness, as if the elder had been disappointed by others many times before. Without hesitation, Jake stood and offered his seat. The scene changed. Now he was in his maintenance tunnels and he heard crying echoing through the air ducts. Following the sound, he found a young Proxian worker stuck in a tight space, frightened and alone. Jake spent 2 hours helping the worker get free, missing his lunch break and staying late to complete his own duties. The scene changed again. He was in his apartment building, helping an elderly human woman carry her groceries. Then he was fixing a broken air filter in an Altarian family's quarters, refusing payment because they were struggling financially. Each scene showed a moment when Jake had chosen kindness over convenience, helping others without expectation of reward. "You see," the archive said as the chamber returned to normal, "true compassion is not a single act. It is a way of living, a choice made every day." Jake looked around at his companions. "But they're all good people too. Captain Torres risks his life to protect others. Dr. Liu dedicates her life to understanding and helping alien species. They all do?" "Indeed they do," the archive agreed. "But they were shaped by cultures that value strength, intelligence, and achievement. You were shaped by something different." "My parents," Jake said quietly. "They taught me that how you treat others is the only thing that really matters." The builders reached the same conclusion, the archive said. "Jake Morrison, I offer you and your species a choice." The walls around them filled with new images. Jake saw incredible technologies, ships that could travel instantly across the galaxy, machines that could heal any injury, devices that could create food and water from thin air. "This is the knowledge of the builders," the archive explained. "Technologies that could end hunger, disease, and war across the galaxy." "But there is a condition." "What condition?" Grand Admiral Threnka asked. "The knowledge must be shared freely with all species," the archive replied. "It cannot be used to gain advantage over others or to create new forms of inequality. It must be given as a gift, just as Jake Morrison gave his seat as a gift." Jake felt the enormity of the decision. This technology could transform the galaxy. but only if everyone agreed to use it for the common good. What if some species refuse to share? Dr. Liu asked. What if they try to use the technology for conquest? Then the knowledge will vanish, the archive said simply. The builders designed these gifts to only function when used with compassion. Attempt to use them for selfish purposes and they will cease to work. Jake looked at each member of his team. He saw doubt in some faces, calculation in others, but he also saw hope. I accept, Jake said firmly. On behalf of humanity, I accept your terms. And I accept for the Zephyrian Empire, Grand Admiral Threnka declared. One by one, the other representatives added their agreement. The archive smiled, its light growing brighter. Then let the new age begin. Knowledge flowed into their minds like a gentle river. Jake saw designs for technologies beyond his imagination, but also something more important, the wisdom to use them properly. He understood now why the builders had required this test. Power without compassion led only to destruction. 6 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of New Terra Station, watching ships from dozens of species working together to build the first builder technology medical center. Diseases that had plagued civilizations for millennia were being cured. Hunger was becoming a thing of the past. Not everything had changed. There were still conflicts, still beings who chose selfishness over kindness. But the galaxy was slowly becoming a better place. Jake still worked in maintenance, though now he also served as Earth's representative to the Galactic Compassion Council, a new organization dedicated to spreading the builders' true message. His life was different now, but in the most important ways it remained the same. When he took the transport home each evening, he still gave his seat to elders. When his neighbors needed help, he was still there to provide it. The only difference was that now, when people thanked him for his kindness, he would smile and say, "Pass it on," because Jake Morrison had learned the most important lesson of all. Kindness, freely given, had the power to change everything. And somewhere in the depths of space, the archive watched with satisfaction as the galaxy slowly learned to choose compassion over conquest, just as the builders had hoped they would 50,000 years ago.